Good afternoon, friends. I would like to welcome you all to this conference. My name is Ivan Lazarev, and I would like to tell you a few words about South African winemaking. Since I have managed to visit South Africa many times, I visited several dozen wineries, and by living here in Russia, I have an enormous interest in the wines of this region. I try to talk about them within the framework of my school and be as useful as possible because South Africa today is on the rise in terms of winemaking. The statistics of the difficult 2020 showed that the country is capable of continuing production even in such difficult quarantine conditions, and moreover, increasing it. And 2020 gave South Africa more than 1 billion liters of wine. Thus, South Africa entered the top 10 leaders in wine production in volume, but also the area of vineyards in South Africa today is more than 90,000 hectares. That is great too. It's nice to see new names being sparked, new craft winemakers emerging. In recent years, sommeliers and people who are passionate about wine, they only talk about the wine revolution that took place in the Swartland region, about how the emphasis is gradually shifting from mono sorts such as Pinotage and Chenin Blanc among buyers toward alternative grape sorts. This is great because South Africa has a lot to offer. Thus, the country itself has a positive connotation with the buyer who has never even been to South Africa. After all, everyone knows about the Cape of Good Hope. Everyone knows that two oceans meet here. Everyone imagines exotic flora and fauna, drawing these wonderful images in their heads. And therefore, it becomes more pleasant to sell South Africa because the buyer has positive connotations. In addition, South Africa does a lot to promote wine, to market wine. Both WOSA, WOSA, and the Pinotage Producers Association, which organize contests that organize Pinotage exhibition, the so-called ABESA. There's an association for the producer Sachin Blanc and Chenin Blanc competition. There's a wonderful association for the production of sparkling wines, the Cape Classic, the so-called Amarin competition. A lot of literature is published, among which the reference book by John Platter is of particular interest. South African wines are regularly featured on the pages of the world's wine reviewers. For example, it is repeatedly included in the top 100 of the best wine spectator. This is good news, and Neil Martin's notes suggest that South African wines are terrific, but totally undervalued by both buyers and producers. This is great because the price tag for South African wines is extremely pleasant for the importer. This year, with Yekaterinburg importers flying to South Africa in February, we were able to select several manufacturers at very pleasant prices in order to present them in the Ural region of Russia. Thus, South Africa today has a positive association with buyers. South Africa is a country of open opportunities and a country open to travel. It was opened, and I'm sure it will be opened, at least for the citizens of the Russian Federation. Even visas are not needed to visit South Africa. Of course, while traveling, people bring history closer to themselves, make South Africa a part of their lives by visiting it, and accordingly, their loyalty to the purchase of South African wine while already in their homeland increases. It is worth noting that South Africa is interesting as it was one of the first to control the wine production process in the New World, and today more than 100 brands in South Africa, the so-called wine of origin (WO), which control the buyer that is genuine wine, a wine born in South Africa in a particular region. And for people who are well-versed in wines, it will be very pleasant to see the differences in the influence of terroir on wine, because the terroir of South Africa is unique. These are ancient soils that are more than a billion years old. This is the convergence of the Indian and Atlantic Oceans. This is a unique mountain range that changes temperature despite hot latitudes. And if we try the same Chardonnay, for example, for the hot region of W.O. Swartland, or from the cool region W. Elgin, these will be absolutely two different wines. Therefore, for lovers of wine terroir wines, South Africa is a real gift. The variety of grape sorts is also pleasing. Today there are about 105 grape sorts in South Africa. Yes, Chenin Blanc still dominates, and by the way, it's curious that South Africa is one of the few, I would even say the only countries in the New World where the production of white wines dominates. In general, we believe that demand for and interest in white and rose wines is growing among buyers. Therefore, the story with Chenin Blanc is absolutely justified. Chenin Blanc today is an ultra-fashionable white grape variety, but I also recommend that buyers pay attention to the white Calambau variety, to the white rising variety, which is a very entertaining in South Africa. Areas and production volumes of the Sauvignon Blanc variety are growing, and if early New Zealand was associated with Sauvignon Blanc, today buying Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa at a price twice as affordable as New Zealand, the buyer begins to vote with their wallet, choosing Sauvignon Blanc in favor of South Africa. The price tag is one of the extra magnets that attract wine lovers. South African wines are extremely accessible in Africa itself, and of course in Russia. The variety is varietal. It's increasing on the shelf today. Today, people can taste different white sorts, different red grapes. If earlier you went into a store and saw Pinotage, 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 another Pinotage, all of these from different producers, but all of them are the same grape sort. Today, Syrah is added to Pinotage, which is experiencing its rebirth in South Africa, especially in the Swartland area. The Cabernet Franc variety from South Africa begins to sound in a new way, and people are discovering the unique aboriginal grape varieties that are also present in South Africa. That is, we must pay tribute that South Africa has its own varietal market. This is also an additional plus. As a result, we see high ratings for South African wines on the pages of wine reviewers, and we see wine exports growing. The export of South African wines to Russia is growing regularly. According to statistics, for the past year, Russia has become the third export market for South African wines. Only Germany and Great Britain exported South Africa more than Russia. True, with the adoption of a new law on Russian winemaking, which prohibits the production of Russian wine from imported wine material, the statistics will certainly change, because most of the exported wine from South Africa was transported to production, so to speak, subsequent bottling in the Russian Federation. But the export statistics are also notable for the growing revenue from the export of South African wines. This indicates that the world's buyer is ready to pay a little more than he used to before, having tasted and fell in love with South Africa. Therefore, of course, South African wines have excellent prospects, and every importer who decides to expand their portfolio by choosing countries, South Africa should be in the top five priorities to look at and guide and introduce their citizens to these drinks. Thank you.